Happy Friday, everyone. This is our monthly webinar. This week is about inventory management with SAP Business One. We're going to talk about best practices. Inventory is a very, very wide topic, so we're going to have a lot of areas to cover. And it's going to be covering many areas around inventory management. So there is a lot more to talk and to go and to drill down and things of that nature. And we'll be happy to accept your feedback if there are future webinars that you'd like to expand specific areas. So we value this feedback. I'm very happy to present here today with Karina Millman. Karina, I know her for 15 years, since the days we worked together at SAP. So Karina.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. Good afternoon. I'm Karina. I'm a project manager here with Pioneer. And I've been working with SAP for about 15 years. And I'm really excited to go over our inventory options and go over a little bit of tips, tricks, and best practices.
Thank you, Karina. So this session is recorded, so if you want to share it with your colleagues, we'll make it available within a few days. With that being said, we're going to start. So what we are going to talk today is about inventory management. We're going to talk about how to leverage the inventory functionality. We're going to touch different areas of where inventory is resides within the SAP Business One system. And we're going to try to maybe share with you one or two things related to that. So our agenda today is to, on a general level, talk about some inventory management and the importance of inventory management. We're going to look at master data, items, warehouses, price lists, unit of measures, things of that nature, inventory valuation methods, and what transactions are affecting inventory. We're going to talk about other inventory functions that could be useful. Not in this topic, but the different options for handheld devices options if you choose to use them today or in the future. And then at the end of the session, we're going to talk about different reportings available around the inventory that could shed some light on different areas. And of course, we're going to share documentation that's available for you for future learning. And we're going to leave some time for Q&A, but if you have any questions in between, please feel free to type in the chat and we'll be happy to answer. So let's talk about inventory management. What is inventory management and why do we need it? So three main causes. First is to reduce the cost of inventory. To reduce the cost in maintaining inventory, it costs the warehouse, the software to maintain it, the people in the warehouse, things of that nature. Of course, our accurate inventory will give the sales people and the operations people the confidence to trust the system and to trust that what it shows, this is what you actually have in inventory. Two other areas, of course, if you are able to maintain as low inventory as possible, of course, it's free up cash flow for other business operations. And of course, it can increase revenue. And of course, if you have the inventory when your customer needs it, there is less chances that they're going to go to the competitors and things of that nature. So inventory is a very important aspect of any distribution or manufacturing business. We're looking to ensure that you know how the system works and how to utilize it to your benefit. We're going to start with master data. Karina?
Yes. Hi. So we will go over the master data and we will see general information that can be held in the item master data. We will review the item groups, warehouses, and price lists. So Oren, if you can switch the system, great. Okay, so if we go into our inventory module and item master data, just look for one of our items here. The item master data screen actually holds all the information that we have regarding the item in SAP. So we can have here the names and the settings. We can see if this item will be sold or will be purchased in SAP. We can also set up this item will be managed by inventory or not. Now, the sales option and the purchasing option can be updated and can be deselected. But once you update the item as an inventory item and you have transactions with the item, you will not be able to make any changes. We have here the general tab. In the general tab, this is general information about the item. You have manufacturing, shipping types, if the item is active or not. You can also set up items to be managed by either serial numbers or batches. Serial numbers or batches, and let me show you an example for an item that is managed by serial numbers. It actually means that every transaction that you do in your inventory, you will have to specify what number, what actual item code and number is involved in this transaction. And this will give you a better visibility of every specific item that is sold or purchased from your vendors. We have this option for serial numbers and also for lot numbers. Our purchasing data tab, actually here we will hold all the information that is relevant for our purchasing process. If we have any preferred vendors, we can set that up here. We can set up purchasing UOMs and also any additional information about the item. A very nice feature that we have here in the purchasing tab is this sales analysis report. If I click on that, I can actually go back. I'm sorry. I can actually see a detailed purchase analysis for this specific item. So it's very nice and convenient to see this information from here. A very similar tab is actually the sales tab, data, which influences our sales processes. Very similar fields here. And also from here, we have the same report, the sales analysis report, also by items, and we can see exactly where this item participated. Our inventory data actually manages the information for the inventory. What will be the inventory UOM, weight, minimum levels, maximum levels, and also we can see here a list of all the warehouses that this item can be found and located in. So this is a list of all our warehouses, and we will discuss it in a few minutes. Our planning data tab is relevant for the MRP module in SAP. If you would like this item to participate in your MRP recommendations and MRP runs, you can set it up here. And according to the settings here, you will get recommendations about purchasing or producing this item. The production data tab, also relevant for our production module in SAP. Again, any information that you update here will be relevant and will be updated in our production process. We also have the properties tab here. We have 64 properties that we can update for every item. We can select more than one property to be relevant for any of our items. And this is the major difference between the properties and our item groups. Properties can be, several properties for one item according to the definition, according to the need. This will help us later on work with reports and just minimize the information that we're getting there. With item groups, every item can be relevant only for one specific group. And we can go in here into the item group setup, and you can actually see that for every group, we have a specific definition. Every group can have different settings, and that will be relevant for all the items that are related to this group.
So that will be the default when creating a new item under this group, but you could also change the definitions as per items.
Yes, that's right. Thanks, Lauren. The next two tabs, this is the remarks tab. Any information you would like to add about the item, you can store in here. And also any attachments, any documents that are relevant for the item can be stored here as well. Going back to the inventory tab, which is what we're interested today, as I mentioned, we can see here the warehouses that our item is located in. I can also see my inventory status here: in stock, committed, ordered, and actually available on hand. If I want to understand where these numbers came from, I can right-click anywhere on the item, and I can go into my available to promise report. And this will actually show me the list of all the documents that have influenced these quantities, and it will help me drill down and understand the numbers that I'm seeing there. Just another quick reminder, once I right-click on the item master data, I have an option to see additional activities and additional reports and information related to this specific item. I would like to show you the warehouse definitions. So if I drill down into one of our warehouses, again, we have here some general information about the warehouse. We can set up a warehouse to be a drop ship warehouse. In this case, once we use this warehouse in our documents, there will not be any inventory transaction. Usually we will use this warehouse in cases where items are being shipped directly from our vendor to our customer. Another option of managing our warehouses is managing them by bin locations. And you can see that this specific warehouse is managed by bin locations. Bin location actually gives us the ability to have specific location, detailed information of where I can go and find my item. So if I go into the bin location, you can see that we can set up several layers as our bins. And this information will actually, again, help me to go and find my item whenever I need to ship it or whenever I want to count it. I will be able to know, for example, on what shelf it is, and not just a general information where it's in the warehouse. Any questions so far? Okay. So the next thing that I would like to show you about the items is actually how we manage our prices. So if we go into inventory and price lists, we can see that we have here a list of prices. Usually the system comes as a default with 10 predefined price lists. We can use all of them, we can delete them. We can set price lists based on one another. So if I have one base price list, I can always set up a new price list with some kind of a factor. So for example, if I add new price list here, and I would like to base it on my base price list with a factor of 3. Once I update that, and we double click on the row and we drill down into the price list, we can see that this is our base price and this is our new price for this price list. And that's because of the factor that we used here. We can play with the factors. We can use any number here according to our final item price, basically. Now, in this case, what I did, I actually updated my whole price list to use factor, a 3 factor. But I can also update only specific item groups. And in this case, this is where the item groups also come very handy, and they can help us with updating our prices. If I select here, update by selection, and I change it here to 2.5, for example, and click on update, the system will ask me, what do I want to update? Because in this case, I'm selecting something specific, not the whole list. So let's say that I would like to choose and update only the printers. I click on OK. Now, when I go back and view my price list, you can actually see that some of the items have this price that uses a factor of 3, but some of the prices use this price with a factor of 2.5. Now, it's very important to remember that the number that we see here does not mean that this is the factor for all the items that we have currently in our price list. It only means that this was the last update that was done here. So you will be able to see if you're using multiple factors here. Once you drill down into your price list, you will be able to see different numbering here and different prices.
And Karina, we have a couple of questions here on the chat. One of them is, the question is, can the factor be a formula based on a parameter? Formula based on a parameter, it cannot be done here in this window. It can be done in the sales or purchasing documents to take any formula or any factor, but in that price list, it's basically just a flat factor. Another question that we had is, when creating a price list, can you have it round up or down? Yes, and that is defined based on the number of decimals we are defining the system with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Another option that we have in the system to manage prices is using our special prices. With special prices, I can actually set up specific items for specific business partners, and I can give them any discount that I would like, or any specific price that will be relevant only for this customer when I'm issuing documents, if it's a sales order or invoice or any other sales document. I can add here any items that I would like just by coming here and just choosing from my list. I can select my price list. I can select my discount percentage, or I can select my price. Now, another option to work with the special prices is to set up a date range. So another option is to double click on the row number, and here I can set up periodic discounts. So now with the holidays coming, I can set up the specific prices for holidays for any time frames that I would like to use these discounts. Another option, if I double click on this row as well, I can use quantity discounts, which means if my customer purchases 100 units, he will get 15%. If he purchases anywhere between 100 and 500 units, he will get 25%. So this is also a very nice way of managing prices and setting up specific prices for our customers according to our arrangements with them.
Yeah, we have a lot of questions in the chat, so I'm gonna try to answer some of them. Also, maybe prices could be an area which we could have a separate webinar, because we have many other functions. There are discounts group and price update wizard that allow you to update prices based on multiples and based on conversion and things of that nature. But I will try to answer very briefly the questions that we had here. One question, if I change, when creating a price list, can you have it round up? We answer that. The other question, if I change the factor, will it overwrite all the factors in the price list? Yes, that is correct. We highly recommend to do significant price changes after a backup of the system or to run it first in the sandbox because it will change all your factors and it's not reversible. That price update wizard, actually, you can run simulation and see how it affects pricing. So that's actually a safer place to do that. We have another question. Can you price orders from delivery date? The answer is that everything is based on the posting date of the transaction, not the delivery date. We could affect it by delivery date using a formatted search. So we could have in the sales order or any other documents, we could have a formatted search, which is basically a formula on the unit side, on the unit price, sorry, to look at the delivery date and based on that to take the appropriate price list into effect. Another question, can you make me presenter? Another question, sorry, I hit the wrong button. I don't want to present. Okay, sounds good. With that being said, the last thing we may want to talk in related to the item master data is the unit of measure, because at some point SAP added a very robust feature to manage unit of measure, and that's called unit of measure group. In majority of the cases, that will be manual. Manual means you could still have unit of measure for purchasing that will be different from sales unit of measure, that will be different from the inventory unit of measure. Okay, so I can say, hey, you know, I have I'm buying with cases, and we have 12 units in a case. And when you buy one case, basically, when you buy one quantity, it will bring into the inventory the 12, and you know, will hit all the relevant quantities and things of that nature. Same thing on the sales side. So in those cases, you could still go with manual. When you're going to use the more robust unit of measure setup is when you would like in the same area to use multiple unit of measure. For example, you may buy in cases, in boxes, and in each. And maybe for each one, you have a completely different pricing structure. Same thing with inventory. You may want to count sometimes in, you know, each, and sometimes you want to count in cases. So having the robust unit of measure structure will allow you to do that. And there is an area under the administration to set up the groups. But basically, if we go into, you know, one of those groups, for example, I'm going to choose paper here. You will see that more fields are now available under each unit of measure. For example, what will be the defaults for the code, what will be the default for counting, although you can count in other areas. And also pricing is going to support that. So you can define pricing to each one of your unit of measure. And then each unit of measure definition is fairly simple. You define your basic unit of measure and the alternative quantities and the multiplication based on that basic unit of measure. So I hope that clarifies when the unit of measure will be in use for you, and you can define different items. Some will be used as manual, some will be used with the additional unit of measure. Any questions so far? Okay, with no questions, we're going to go into our next slide. So we're going to talk about inventory valuation. So the different methods of inventory valuation and the inventory revaluation, if you need to adjust the amounts and the cost of your product and learn what is the best way to do that. So going back to the system and to the item master data, when I'm going to create a new item, of course, I can have a manual enter the number, or I can define in administration automatic numbering. But I'm going to do just, this item for now, this item. And when I create an item, as Karina showed, it will take the valuation method default from the item group. Okay, I can change it when set it up a new item, and I have 3 different methods: the moving average, the standard, it means fixed cost for an item, and FIFO, first in, first out. That definition basically control the cost and the valuation of our item in our accounting. So FIFO, for example, it's first in, first out. So if we have 70 units in our inventory, it will calculate that. It will calculate the cost based on the most fresh inventory. So if we bought those 17 units in different prices, the system is looking at first in, first out. So the inventory that already sold is out of the system, and basically FIFO is looking at the last purchases. Standard, same thing, and moving average. The other thing, if we are managing by serial number or batches, that will open up another valuation method, which is called serial batch. And this is basically actuals. What it means that when I buy or when I produce an item that is batch managed or serial managed, when I sell it or when I release it, it will take the cost based on the specific batch cost or based on the specific serial number. So that's another way to do that. If you ever need to adjust an item, so for example, if we take one of the items we reviewed earlier, I was in ed mode, so I'm gonna do A002, for example. We see that the item cost is 148. My setup is that every warehouse have a different item cost potentially. So I have different item costs for different warehouses. But for example, if I want to adjust that 148.25, the best way to do that will be using the inventory revaluation. So it resides under the inventory transactions. We can go to inventory revaluation, and we can choose that item code, or 8002. We can see the current price. We can see how much we have in stock. We can see my default GL accounts that is going to increase or decrease based on my GL account determination, and we see the current method. If it was FIFO, we actually could see multiple layers, and based on that, we can change the price in each one of those layers. But in this case, if I want to change that to 145, and I want to comply with the audits and things of that nature, that will, of course, decrease my inventory in that case. And once I add that, it's not just decrease the item cost. So if I go ahead and refresh it, we see now 145, but it's also affect my accounting because that system is fully integrated. Everything that I do in the inventory affect accounting with perpetual inventory. So when I drill down into the journal entry, we can see that it reduced my inventory based on the new item cost and the number of inventory items I have, and go to my variance account of gain and loss. The other thing that I don't think we have much time to talk about it today, but the method, if you're looking to transition between one method to another. For example, you manage the company using moving average, and right now you discover that there is an actual method available and you want to change everything from moving average to actuals. There is a way to do that. It's not always that easy because items with transactions, those open transactions needs to be closed. We need to change it and then recreate those open transactions. We could help doing that using DTWs and other methods. But just on a nutshell, there is also the ability to convert all the groups in one go, and that system will tell us what's open, what's not, using the inventory valuation method change. Any questions? We have a question. Is there any way to change font color for parts numbers in inventory? So to change the color, there is no way to change the color, but there is a way using an add-on called Volume. With Volume, you could really control the names of the fields and the colors of the fields and colors based on logic and things of that nature. But out of the box, there is no option to change those colors. Okay, with no other questions, we're gonna go into the next topic.
Our next topic is inventory transactions. And as Lauren mentioned, we can adjust the inventory value, but we can also have several options to adjust our inventory quantities. So if we switch back to SAP, and under inventory module, inventory transactions, we have the goods receipt and the goods issued. The goods receipt and the goods issue would usually help us do minor adjustments with our items. For example, I found a box of items, products in my warehouse, and I see that it's not in my system. I don't see these quantities in SAP. I can just go in, select the item that I would like to add. Select the item that I would like to add, the quantity that I just found, the unit price. I can use it, I can take the price from the price list here, or I can just key it in, and then I can add it into my inventory. Once I click on add, managed by serial numbers, I will need to specify the numbers here. If it's not managed by serial numbers, I will just be able to add it to the system and see how it increases my inventory. And just as Warren showed before, this is the journal entry that it's created. We also have the goods issue document, which when I open it, you can see that it's exactly the same as the good receipt. I can just choose an item that I would like to take out of inventory. Again, something happened, I don't have it anymore. It's not something that was shipped to my customer or anything. I just found out that I don't have it there. This is where I would use my goods issue.
There is one thing to mention about the good receipt. Every document that is being received into inventory will affect your item cost, whether you use FIFO or moving average, unless if it's standard, of course. So you want to make sure, especially on the good receipt, that your prices are accurate. So if you base it based on a specific prices, make sure it's accurate, or make sure that people that have access to do good receipts adjustment have the understanding that that price that is here is going to affect the item value.
Thank you, Warren. The next document that we can use to adjust our inventory is the inventory transfer. With inventory transfer, what I can basically do, because I have several warehouses set up in the system in SAP, I can select where to move my items to and from. So when I choose, again, any item here, I can choose from what warehouse I would like to move it and to what warehouse I would like to move it. Now, if I have a long list of items that I would like to move from one warehouse to another, I don't need to go here and just update every row one by one. I can use this section here and update it automatically. So from warehouse and to warehouse, and then if I have anything that needs to be specifically handled, I can update it here. Another field that can help us is the business partner information. Sometimes I would do an inventory transfer for a customer for some items to be waiting for him in another warehouse. Sometimes I will be receiving inventory from my vendor, which produce something for me, and I would like to have it under his name. So this field here can really be helpful allocating this specific transaction and these items in my inventory.
Right. For example, you send the item for external operations in your, vendors, and if the warehouse has been defined as a warehouse, vendor warehouse, you can define that vendor, and that's also a legal, could be printed for any shipping needs and transfers and things of that nature. And one more thing to mention, the inventory transfer is actually going to transfer the inventory, but there is also another document called transfer request that could be a prior step to the actual transfer that could commit that inventory to and from the specific warehouse.
Now, the other inventory transactions and adjustments that we can do in the system is actually inventory counting. Every specific time period, we can do, we can count our items. We would like to see how much do we actually have in every warehouse, how much do we actually have on hand. And to do that, we can go into the inventory transactions and inventory counting. Now, our inventory counting is actually divided into two steps. The first step will be to decide what items I would like to start counting. I will select here all my relevant items. I can select the warehouse that I will be going to count, and I can see the quantities here, and I can just print this document or email it to my to the person that is doing the counting. When I'm printing it or emailing, the system will ask me, do I want to show the on-hand quantity or do I want to hide it? Sometimes we would like to hide the on-hand quantity, so what the user will eventually see will be only the item code, the item description, and the warehouse, and somewhere to write down the numbers, but he won't see the in-house quantity, just because when you know what you're supposed to count, it can sometimes influence the number that you will eventually write down. So you have this option in the system, and you can basically select what you would like to do and how you would like to print it. After you receive your after you receive your counting information, you will go into the system and then update the numbers here. For example, this item here, I thought I had 78 items, but I found more, so I will type in 80. This item here, I counted and I don't have any items in my warehouse, so I can just click here on counted, and I will not update any number here. The system will know that we need to zero it out. Now, once I update this inventory counting, it really didn't do anything yet. It's just a draft in the system. Only once I copy this document into my inventory posting, only then it will actually post an inventory transaction, and it will influence my inventory quantities. It will, of course, influence my inventory value, and I will be able to see the counting transaction in my system.
I think it doesn't have a cost, so that's why it doesn't.
I don't have cost, but I would like to show you an example of an inventory posting. I have this item here that we posted, and this is the inventory transaction that is being created by the system.
Thank you, Karina.
Any questions? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have a few questions. I'm gonna read them out loud. Can you have a reason code for a stock adjustment so you understand what is driving the adjustment? Yes, absolutely. So there are two areas. One of them, there are other documents, we are not going to talk about it, but return request and return. So when you do those transactions, you have fields for request. They are not mandatory by default. So you want to ask to make them mandatory if that's something that you'd like to track. Also in the inventory transactions, let me add those return reasons if they're available here. I can't find them now, but basically what we did for different customers. So SAP added the return request documents in the latest version. So those are available in those documents. In the good receipts and good issue, if we want to have a reason, sometimes if we want to see that in the accounting, we do validation on the journal remarks. So also in the journal entries and in your general ledger, you will see the reason for those adjustments. So we felt it to be a reason which is not a good receipt. You could also change the name here to say the reason. In some other cases, we defined a UDF, and based on the business need, it could be at the header or could be for each line of the items. And what we normally do here is we do a choose from list. So we said, you know, damaged, discontinued, and so forth and so forth. So if the system does not allow that default, we can choose here, basically choose from list of what is the reason, and then you'll see that in your accounting as well. But there are multiple options, including UDF, so it depends really what is the reason. So that's one. Another question that we had is on transfer. Will the receiving warehouse guarantee to confirm arrival? So that's basically why we may use transfer request and inventory transfer. The request is going to tell the receiving warehouse, hey, this item is supposed to arrive here. So this is closed, this is closed. If it's open, it will be committed. And the receiving warehouse could copy the transfer request into the inventory transfer transaction. Another question is great material, thank you. Are we getting a copy of the video? Yes, this session is recorded and will be available within a few days, and our admin will send a recording of the session to all. And it's going to be also available on our website, on our blog area. We have here all the previous blogs, for example, budget setup, usability, SQL training, all of that is available under our blogs on our website. Next topic, just in a nutshell, when we look at inventory counting, there is one more thing to be aware of, that you can also define cycle counts. So every item, every warehouse we can define cycle counts. And some of our clients are separating the items into A, B, and C. A are the most important items that you need to look at on a daily basis and maybe count on a weekly basis. But the system will allow you to define almost every configuration for different items. So by having a continuous cycle count, that will allow you to periodically count all your inventory and not have such a huge adjustment at the end of the quarter or at the end of the year. So far, so good. So we're going to continue with the rest of the presentation. Inventory functions is the next one. So just on a nutshell, talking about planning and forecasting, we are not going to drill down into that because we have a whole webinar just about the MRP, alerts and activities, and control tab options. So really quickly, looking at the forecasting, it's under the MRP. So if we really want to plan our inventory and have the system look at our inventory minimum levels, order intervals, things of that nature, that's really where the MRP stands. And we can have our own forecast and bring it into the system. We can create multiple forecasts. We could have the system generate a forecast for us, either on a monthly base or weekly base. We could generate it based on specific warehouse. We can base it based on history, based on sales order, or based on deliveries from beginning of the year, or simple average or monthly average. That will generate the forecast for us. Basically, we could add the growth. We are growing 20% every year, so that could generate the trends and increase the items accordingly. But again, that will be specified in a completely different webinar. So I encourage you to go to our website. And I think on the second page of our, and we're going to share it at the end also, all the documentation. But basically on the second page, we're going to have here the MRP training. If you have a hard time to find it, like I do, you can always search. So if you type on our website MRP, or budget or anything else, that will take you into the MRP area, and you can drill down into the MRP training session. We have a recording session, we have SAP documents, we have our documents. So, by clicking here, you could have all the information you may need to know about the MRP area. Another thing that I would like to share with you just very briefly is the activities. In one of the versions, SAP extended the ability to do activities for a specific item, not just for documents. So if you look at linked documents, you have here item master data. So you can associate an activity to a specific item, basically. So you could do activities for the item. Also, if you are from the item and you want to take action, or you want a different user to take action from here, you can create a new activity that will automatically associate the item number with the activity, and you can associate it for different person. Please count that inventory and things of that nature. Another thing to remember is the alerts. There are multiple alerts coming out of the box for inventory cycle counts, for inventory minimums, and you can create any activities that you wish by yourself. So for example, minimum stock deviation will send an email or an internal message once activated to the appropriate users, and will show you in your inbox, or also in your emails, what are the items that got into under minimum inventory. And it's real time. So as soon as you have an invoice that reduced that below minimum inventory, the user will get a notification and will be able to take immediate action. There are also others alerts available, like the MRP recommendations and cycle counts, as I said, and things of that nature. Really briefly, Karina, do you want to talk about the Control Tab and right-click options?
Yeah, just want to show you very nice options when you work with your documents. If it's sales documents or purchasing documents, you can always access some additional information whenever you're standing on any one of the columns here using the Control Tab. So when you stand on the item number and click on Control Tab, you can see the predefined alternative items. This can help us whenever we may need to send a different item to our my items during the sales order step. Another option, when I stand on my warehouse column and I click the Control Tab, I can actually see my inventory status by warehouse. So I can select and I can choose what would be the best warehouse to use in this case, what would be the best warehouse to ship my items from. And the next one, once I stand on the unit price and click on Control Tab, I can actually see a list of my last prices for this specific item. I can either see for a specific customer, only customers, or maybe vendors, to be able to see if my price range is the right price range. And let's do it here, just for an example. And you can see a list here of all the prices. And again, that can help me while I'm working on my documents to have accurate information.
And by the way, this has full authorization. So if you don't wish a specific user to look at, customer or vendor history, list price reports, so you could restrict that. But those are the options. I would encourage you to explore the right click because it has a lot of options. For example, to see the available to promise, to generate pick lists, to do transfers from here, to look at the batch serial numbers, things of that nature. So because of lack of time, we're not going to hit each one of them, but those are a lot of treasures available in the right click. Any questions so far? All right, we just have a comment. Thanks, learning a lot from this. Greetings from the UK. Hi. Another comment, maybe we get the reporting emails to us. Yes, absolutely, it will be. If you are one of our clients, you will get that recording session. The next one, very briefly about handheld devices, because I think we could have a session just about that. And again, we encourage you to tell us what you guys want to see in the future, but it's handheld devices. Handheld devices is normally an add-on. It's a software that is sitting on a handheld device and allow you to receive inventory, to transfer inventory, to pick inventory, and things of that nature. There are some simple solutions. There are more robust solutions. Simple solution really helps you with the basic functions. The robust solutions, some of them may help you with the warehouse optimizations, reservations of inventory, pallets management, and containers and things of that nature. So that's the big difference between those two. The simple solution really allow you to control basic productions or inventory transactions within the warehouse. You want to make sure first that you have a structure of the warehouse and that you have, of course, Wi-Fi mapped in the whole warehouse. But the three solutions we work with is related to the simple and straightforward solutions, also lower investment, is the rig group, Boyum, Prodomex Scan, and RFGen. And the more robust solutions are Prodomex WMS, the Achieve WMS, and Lisa WMS. Again, maybe a second session will be sufficient. So in the few minutes that we have, we're going to talk about reporting, open items, last prices report, inactive items. We're probably going to spend only a few seconds on each one of them because of constraints of time. So with that being said, Karina?
Yep. So all our inventory reports can be found under the inventory reports, actually. In the open items list, I want to show you interesting reports. We have the missing items. Here I will be able to see all the items that are currently missing from my inventory. So all the items here that have a negative quantity can be seen here and can be handled accordingly. I can see here any open production orders that needs to be, go into production process, any open inventory counting documents, for example, that I've updated the counting, but I still did not finish up my inventory posting. They will be available here. We also have the inactive items. Before that, I'm sorry, we have the last prices report, the one that we just saw from the documents can be accessed from here as well. We have the inactive items. If I would like to see what items were not used in a specific period of time, I can run this report and see what items were not sold or sold to my customers. I can choose the relevant documents. And again, I can just take the necessary actions to maybe start working with these items or maybe do any additional activities.
So if we are looking at any item that was never sold, from the beginning of the year, we can do that this way. And maybe for some of them, we do have sales quotations, so we could filter using those documents and refresh it. So that's very helpful to understand which are inactive items and maybe have a promotion on them so we can get them out of our inventory.
Our next report is the inventory posting list. The inventory posting list will basically show us all the transactions that happened for a specific item.
This is a very robust report. It's like the general ledger from an accounting side. That will show you everything and anything you need to see from many different perspectives. You could also have here the expanded button to see so many options and to filter so many options in order to see exactly what you want to see by item, by customer or vendor, by location, by warehouse. Everything here could be basically filtered very quickly, or you also have a lot of sorting and other options that are available. So I highly recommend to explore that specific report.
Mm-hmm. And another very interesting report that we have here is the inventory status. Similar to the report, to the inventory tab that we saw for every item, we can see here our in-stock, committed, and ordered quantities. If I double click on the row number, I will get a detailed information again for orders and purchase orders that will explain the numbers that I'm seeing in the original this report.
Excellent. And of course, when we double click, we can also further click into the document, things of that nature. Maybe last reports we're going to talk about today is the audit report. This is basically where most of the controllers will use that report to understand what's the value of the inventory, and for audit purposes, it's really important to do basically mainly to use inventory when you move inventory, not using journal entries, but using inventory document, because otherwise it will mess up this report. Because this report you can run by GL accounts or by item. I would run it for one item now, just because of that item could take a long time to run. Normally, you may want to choose posting date. System date is the actual transaction date. Posting date is the date on the transaction. So normally you would like to leave it empty because it's a balance sheet. You want all the transactions until a specific date, 12/31, and things of that nature. You want to choose all your GL accounts. It will take only inventory accounts, of course, and you can run it by item or by accounts. You could do that also for a specific item using right click on the item. But if we look here at a specific item in our inventory, when running that report, you will get a very detailed report on what is the cumulative balance or value of that specific item in your accounting, how much quantity you have, and what's the dollar amount. And you can actually expand it to see in each warehouse what exactly created that value, and you have a running balance of what creates that value, and whether you use moving average or any other method that will show you that. Now, we have other reports available, and maybe we'll do another, based on the needs, we may want to do another inventory training, a more deep inventory training. But we basically finished here. So I'm just going to do a quick summary of what we discussed today, and we'll share some of the documents and additional documentation we have. So inventory management we talked about and why it's important. We talked about master data. We talked about different way to evaluate our inventory and different way to transact with inventory. We talked about different features of inventory functions, and we talked about the reporting, or some of the main reporting available for us. So let's just wrap up with the documentations available. So the first one is the Learning Hub. It does require S-user, but it has a lot of materials, training documents, and videos that could assist SAP existing clients to utilize. The rest of the documentation does not need any S-user. So the SAP Help Portal is going to be available here. The MRP training, we have a group of tips and tricks available online where we share a lot of tips and tricks as we go through them, and a lot of treasures on YouTube and Google. So I really encourage you to utilize them. And before we finish, we have one more questions. And don't think I heard the response to as if I can delete or remove part items already entered in inventory. So if you have transactions in your database on an items, if it's a sales order or a sales quotation, you could change the item within the sales order and then it doesn't have any transaction and then you can delete it. But if you already transacted, for example, received it into inventory and released it, things of that nature, you could not remove that item from the database because this system is audited and it always shows that history. But what you can do in order not to see that item, you can make it an inactive item. It will still allow you to see that in the item master data, but a system definition will allow you to decide if you go under the general settings under the inventory, you could decide if you wish to display inactive items in different areas. So if you don't want your salespeople to see that in sales orders, you could uncheck that, make the item inactive, and then you won't see that. I recommend to leave it in reports because when you run reports, you do want to see that item. Any other questions? Any other questions? We have a comment. A great topic for webinar could be cash flow, statement of cash flow reference. Thank you. We'll put it on the agenda. Thank you. Any other questions? So with no other questions, we're going to wrap up here. If you have further questions or advice on or specific questions, feel free to reach out directly to me or Karina or to our support. Feel free to send us an email and let us know what you may need to see in future webinars. So want to say thank you for everyone. Appreciate you joined us and have a great Friday. Have a good weekend, everyone, and looking forward to next webinar.
Thank you, everybody, and have a great weekend.
Thank you.